Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with Good Morning Portugal show, a live stream and podcast. Looking particularly shiny. My on-air light is shining brightly this morning, which means we're here on the Good Morning Portugal show. Did I say the whole thing? Hola, bon dia, alegria. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, live stream and podcast with added Mrs. M this morning as well. Let's find out what that M really stands for. Is it Munson? Is it migration? Or is it both as I launch my new plan for world domination in 2024? Not really. Not world domination exactly, but changing your world if you like, if you feel the need to move to Portugal or want to enjoy your life even more here in 2024. So more about that after 9, whereupon Mrs. M joins us and will appraise my plans, my latest proposal to help people. She's not a harsh critic exactly, but she can be quite objective and plain speaking when it comes to some of my suggestions. So you might like to watch that, a bit like the modern equivalent of the amphitheatre, Christians and Lions, that kind of thing. Right. How are you doing? Do let me know in the chat. I'm feeling a little bit of a reverberation in the studio. Let me just turn down the monitor. I think I need a few more soft surfaces in here, perhaps, after a few weeks of tweaking. Yes, I think we need to change the acoustics a little bit. It does sound a little bit echoey. Sorry if that's annoying to you. I will be working on that. Another note to self there to take care of. Right. We have got T-Duck in the house, along with Alison James, Mr. S, James, as well as Alison James. Andy Klein is here. Good morning to you, Andy. Looking forward to working with you again in Coimbra on the Discovery weekend on the 9th and 10th. We were laughing yesterday, weren't we, Andy, about how, you know, they said it will be a nice, quiet retirement. Who is actually experiencing that? You're up early, says Joseph Fisher. A new name to the screen. Good morning to you, Joseph Fisher. I was going to say you are too, but maybe not. Maybe you're having a duvet day and watching from bed. You don't have to disclose your whereabouts, by the way. Today's the big day, final day of debate on the budget. Absolutely. Yes, well said, Joseph. Thank you for that reminder. NHR on the chopping block. I suppose one way of looking at that is which part of the chopping block is it on? Is it on that bit over there, or is it going to come straight under the sharpened knives of politicians today? Carl, did you say you've been? I thought that said twerking. Of course, I've been twerking for weeks. I never go anywhere without a quick twerk. Does tweaking mean something different in the United States? I think it probably does. And I don't know what these giggles are for. Is that about the quiet retirement thing, or is that because I've made a social faux pas by misappropriating the word tweak, I wonder. Good morning, all ye merry gumpers. A little bit too festive for our liking. We're still in November there, please, Douglas. They're trying to sneak in a Christmassy greeting there. 1st of December. We'll go crazy for Christmas. Don't worry about that. So we'll have a lot of fun lighting up Christmas, of course, as we usually do, as is our habit. In the great tradition of the Good Morning Portugal Christmas, all of 2 years, I think, of history of that. But yeah, we will have a lot. Oh dear. Sorry, I've just seen that, James. Yeah, we'll begin. We'll enter Christmas in earnest, so to speak, on the 1st, which is only Friday, isn't it? Where we'll have Bobby O'Reilly with us. We'll have Savika Anna as well with us. We're looking forward to 24. We'll be doing a lot of that as well, I think, in the next month or so. Is looking forward to the new year and what that'll bring, because it's an exciting year here in Portugal for sure, with the Carnation Revolution anniversary, 50 years. Portugal, the football team in the Euros, Euro 24, and of course the general election. Not poor old Ernest. And tweaking, apparently. I see now. I see. When I say to people, I've been tweaking, tweaking in the studio, they walk away. It's disgusting. Right. Now I understand. Does it make a difference if twerking and tweaking with two E's? No. Tweaking with an EA. I thought it meant to make a minor adjustment. Clearly, it doesn't mean that. Yes, thank you, James. With an EA is also to make a small adjustment. That's what I've been doing. Of course. What did you think? Did you think I've been bending over, thrusting my buttocks in other people's faces while taking part in illicit drug rituals here in this studio? Certainly not. How very dare you? Ha ha ha, says Joseph. Joseph, you're making yourself at home this morning. Good to see you here. Have we met? Was that you twerking in the club the other night? Bon dia todos. For me, Tuesday. Oh my goodness, that's really thrown me. The twerking and the tweaking this morning. Okay, deep breath. Mrs. M's joining us. Jacqui also joining us from Expats Portugal at around 1:45. She needs to finish promptly, so don't keep her here with loads of questions and compliments this morning. But Jacqui will be here, or not but, and she'll be joining us at around 8:45 to tell us what's going on at EPHQ. A real estate special, I understand. She'll tell us more about that tomorrow night on the webinar. And of course, Dream Team highlights of forthcoming attractions over at Expats Portugal. Bon dia todos. For me, Wednesday, not Tuesday, is a quiet day. No training or coaching, just our walk for morning coffee. It's almost like a weekend used to be before we retired. It's good to relax occasionally. Yeah, quiet retirement. It's just nonsense, isn't it? I'm observing, not that I'm attempting to have one of those, far from it. But those of you who I am observing are trying to retire. It's not going terribly well in terms of rest and recreation. You seem busier than ever. And this midweek weekend thing is a great idea. Of course, Wednesday is my midweek weekend, my weekends day. So bring it on. We meet up today. I think we're going to go to, if Palmeira aren't open, there's another fantastic Tasca in the town, right in the middle of town here in San Martino de Porto. Tasco de Largo, I believe it's called. That's where I'll be headed. But I will pop out after the show to make sure it's open, because it's real Russian roulette stuff. Can you still say that? It's really random. You can still say that, can't you? It's really random, the whole idea of going out at the moment after the holiday season. And I'm not... believe me, I'm not complaining about this. It's just a difficult thing to manage when you just take for granted that certain establishments will be open in the town. And of course, quite rightly and understandably, they're having their post-holiday break. They've been busy right through September, most of October, things winding down, and November, a good time to have a holiday. And quite rightly so they are, but I'm not often the last to find out about it. So I'll go and see if Palmeira's open, our first choice, of course, when Nelson and Margarita make us so welcome. And I hope they've had a lovely rest in most of November. And if they're not, we will then, our next choice will be Tasca de Largo in town as well, where they do some cracking prato de dias. They've got an inside and an outside area. You're going to need that today. If sometimes with our meetups, it gets a bit noisy inside with all those hard surfaces, and you can't hear, you're just hearing the clattering of cutlery, coffee cups, plates, chairs on the floor, and the hubbub that becomes quite unbearable when loads of people start talking and are pleased to see each other, ironically. So there's a bit of an outside covered space, which we'll need. It's raining here in San Martino de Porto. I popped out in a brief lull in the rainfall this morning. Saw my neighbor. Morning, hola, bon dia, tudo bem? He's German. Guten Morgen, I should have said. And he said, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. Don't like it when it's this cold, though. He said, yes, and that's inside the house. It's that time of year, folks, when it's colder inside the house, and it's nice to get outdoors, as we will do today at the meetup. Currently 16 outside. That's not too bad, is it? It's mild, but wet and rainy. So intermittent rain showers, I'm thinking. Hopefully the weather will be great for the Silver Coast Beer Festival that's starting this Friday. Of course, it's a public holiday. If you're wondering, well, how on earth are these people drinking so early on a Friday? It's a public holiday. It's the Restoration public holiday when Portugal was regained back from the Spanish. If anyone wants to send me a link, but I meant to actually do a little bit more research into that. Fell by the wayside. But if you know more about the restoration holiday and you want to send me a link about that so we can read it out this morning, please do so. Okay, so all the best to you today, Coach Turner, and have a nice relaxing day. Rest that bursitis and Achilles heel of yours. Your God Squad tip of the day then is, as we get a little older, we have to be a little more careful about the exercises we do. It's true. One false move, like bending over rapidly when you're twerking, for example, or tweaking in the studio, and you can really pull something, can't you? You can pull and twist things if you go about it with the vigor of earlier times in your life. So particularly with the shoulders and the back, this can be an issue. However, there are always alternatives. Is this alternatives to exercise or alternatives to bending over? Let's find out. We'll look at what to avoid next week, but for your regular schedule, in addition to walking and legs, yes, it's really good. I'm loving how you're breaking this down. I think I'm going to have a legs day and an upper body day. I'm going to break it up like that. And I'm not going to do it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to have a revolving program. So it might be, a 5-day cycle of different parts of the body over the 7 days. So it doesn't become too religious, dare I say, or mechanical. So in addition to walking and legs, set aside 2 5-minute sessions for your arms. Simple press-ups and tricep dips are enough. Oh, very good. Okay. So maybe we can have a few simple routines as well that we could get up there on GMP VIP in the God Squad section there, 50 plus vitality. Give people a few clues as to what to do, Coach Turner. I'll do a bit of research on that. And yeah, I think a legs day, an arms day, and it's not just for the exercise, is it? It's that day. For those of you who are into the attitude of gratitude, you can take that arms day to say, thank you, arms, for all you do for me. I know I complain about you sometimes, especially when I've got a little ache or a pain, but let me on arms day say to you, thank you so much. Same on legs day, etc. As usual, start slowly and build up gradually to 3 sets of 10 for each exercise. Enjoy while you can. It's core and abs tomorrow. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Coach Turner, for that. Really feeling it and grateful to you for your continued contributions. T-Duck, good morning, Coach. Here we go. Is it true that treadmills will get you nowhere? Yes, and always there to balance any energetic input. Thank you very much, T-Duck. Great to see you and great to see you and Mrs. Duck yesterday. Bon dia alegria gumpers, you say at 8:13 with a deep thought. Deep thoughts from Dr. Seuss today. You're never too old, too wacky, too wild to pick up a book and read to a child. You're never too old, too wacky, too wild to pick up a book and read to a child. Absolutely. And yeah, we popped along to the library, didn't we, in Caldas yesterday? And very good it was too. Very well specified. I didn't actually pick up a book for my kids. We played battleships and Jenga. Yes, sorry, if you were trying to study in Caldas library yesterday or read the paper quietly in the warm, saving on your electricity bill, and there were some really noisy people thinking, oh my God, come here for a bit of peace. And these blokes brought his kids into the library and they're playing Jenga, screaming and shouting, you sunk my battleship. That was us. Sorry. Dr. Seuss wrote many of the most popular children's books of all time. His works have sold more than 600 million copies and have been translated into more than 20 languages. Wow. Portuguese saying of the day. Thank you for these. The return of the Portuguese saying of the day on the screen. They are, of course, immortalized over at gmpvip.com. There are over 200 comments featuring these Portuguese sayings over there at gmpvip.com. Great for the vocabulary. Great for an insight into the Portuguese psyche. Now, Cutuca, a onça com vara curta. Don't poke the jaguar with a short stick. Obviously, as if that needed pointing out to anybody, but in case that is you today, don't poke the jaguar with a short stick. Obviously, you should have been taught that in school or by your parents. If you weren't, you're very welcome this morning, courtesy of T-Duck and the Portuguese culture there. Now, Cutuca, a onça com vara curta. All right, dad jokes. We'll come back to those. Mrs. M loves a good dad joke. I'm sure that's what the grimace means. And like, oh God, eyes rolling, grimacing face, eyes rolling skyward. I'm sure that means she loves the dad jokes, those especially for her, and saved for that purpose. Bon dia, Gumpers from James. Slug is slow like honey. Thank you, Fiona. Fiona Apple, that is, at 8:15 this morning. Ana Beaja. James, a quarta-feira, ao fim da nossa semana de trabalho, por isso adoramos. Adoramos-las sempre. Hoje temos uma inspeção para obter a trifásica após 2 anos e meio, por isso deve ser bom. I don't know what that inspection is about, but good luck with it anyway. Hopefully no twerking or tweaking involved there. Bon dia, alegria, coffee time. Alison is here lovely to see you too. And Michael yesterday in La Vie with the excellent addition of Portugalia. Did I mention that we now have a Portugalia in Caldas at the La Vie? I think I did. But I tell you what, I really like Portugalia. It's Portuguese fast food, basically. Quality. Chicken steak with rice, with most colors of the beige or from the white to the brown paint card are expressed on that particular plate of rice, chips, chicken breast, egg, don't forget the egg, and the molio on there, which my kids have challenged me to make it. I'll have to talk to Owen about that, who's with us tomorrow. There's a fabulous sauce that goes on there, which is winey and buttery. Winey in a good way, as in it's got wine in it, not that it makes you whine when you eat it. But wine, butter, salty, of course, really nice on the chips, on the rice, on the chicken steak. Jacqui's just arrived thinking, what on earth is he talking about? I'm talking about Portugalia and their wonderful bife de frango menu that you can have there. Freshly arrived, now trading in Caldas de Rainha, and they're firing on all cylinders, and it's plenty of gravy. Sometimes when you go to the busy one, they can be a bit mean on the gravy, but Caldas de Rainha are keen to impress the locals, and it was beautiful. It looked like a fantastic and tasty plate yesterday. Let's give her a nice big round of applause because she can't hang about this morning. It's Jacqui!
Hola!
Bom dia, alegria, tudo bem?
You can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear. In fact, I'm going to have to turn you down a little bit. It's so loud, Jacqui. But you're bright and breezy this morning, which is great.
So we have an interesting one coming up this Thursday.
Go on, tell us all about it.
Well, I will start by saying that I spoke to one of our Expats premium members, and they were telling me about their experience with Casa Portuguesa, which is who we're going to be featuring this Thursday.
Marvelous.
And after I got off this consultation, and this young man, he was like a real finance bro, like massive.
Oh, is he? Chop, busy. Yeah.
And he was like, he was great. And he was telling me about his experience with Casa Portuguesa. And I actually got off the phone, the Zoom call. I was like, oh my gosh, I am jealous and resenting this young man for this experience because it was the opposite of the experience we had. And so I'll just say a little bit about Casa Portuguesa and why I felt that way.
Yeah. Before you do, your I think your microphone is possibly rubbing against your garment.
Oh, sorry.
You've got a little bit of a noisy mic. Sounds like you're dancing, but clearly you're not.
I move too much.
You are moving a little bit, and there's a little bit of friction going on, if you don't mind me saying.
Okay. How about now? Is it better?
That's much better. Thank you very much.
Okay. So Casa Portuguesa, what it does, and they do it in, I think this is extraordinary. So let's say you're an American or a UK person and you want to move to Portugal. You don't know the country that well, but you understand what your needs are. Like you may want to live close to an airport, but it be in an urban center, but not too far from the ocean, and all those criteria.
Yeah.
And what they do very well is that they have offices throughout Portugal with people that truly know the neighborhoods.
Yes.
I'm not just talking about an area. They know the neighborhood. So they'll tell you, you don't want to walk to the grocery store. Well, there's 4 grocery stores within, 4 blocks or something like that. Yeah. So what you do is you kind of do a deep dive about what you're looking for. And then, beyond how many bedrooms, what, building, a high rise, whatever you're looking for. And then they send you, while you're in your country of origin, videos of the neighborhood, videos of the apartment. Okay,
Very good.
this I could wrap my head around. This is great. But then this young man said, "Oh, they have an extra service." I was like, "Oh, I didn't
What?
realize they had an extra service."
I'm all
He's
ears.
well, after doing all this, he goes, I don't know, I think it was like around 200 euros. He said they took care of everything, all utilities, water, lights, gas,
Yeah.
electricity. He says, and my internet. I walked in and it was turnkey. And I thought, oh my gosh, it
Wasn't
took
like
me,
that for you, was it, Jacqui, as I
oh
recall?
my gosh, it took hours and hours and hours
And stress.
and one battle after another. And I thought, oh, and it was such a low cost. I remember thinking for the amount of work that went into that, the cost was low.
Yes.
And I was so impressed. I mean, I was impressed that they could do all of these things. But
Could
that
be,
last,
it could be the best $200 you spent here, couldn't it?
I said, oh my, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes.
Had you ever heard of a service like that?
Well, yes, I was aware that they could do it. I didn't know it was a discrete package like that, which is excellent. And what I do know about them is that there's often a bottle of wine on the counter when you take possession as well. And they've got a transit service as well, haven't they? So if you need picking up from the airport and taking to this new turnkey residence of yours, they can pick you up from the airport as well.
And to the American or the person coming from the UK, those costs are very nominal. And imagine being picked up by somebody that knows your apartment, that knows your neighborhood.
Yes.
It's probably for the same cost as your Uber.
Yes. Well, going to be a little bit of questioning of the pricing here. It costs €1,000 to hire them. Yeah, that's for the whole service. We're talking about a particular part of the service here, aren't we?
These are additional services above.
Yeah.
So it's 1,000 for them videotaping neighborhoods, understanding your needs, and then these are costs above.
Yes, yeah, that's a particular package of the turnkey service. Now, what's interesting about them is, of course, they're Portuguese, and if they don't know an area, they'll have a friend or a cousin or colleague, won't they, in an area, and that's the kind of reach you're not going to get as a foreigner living on your own, with your own intuitions and skill level.
But they have people all over Portugal,
right?
So their colleagues could have this conversation, and you're right. You're not going to get that level. Look, there's one thing for somebody to show you an apartment like a realtor, and sometimes realtors do have this information, but it's a kind of next level when they could talk to you more deeply about, well, this is what I know about this neighborhood. That it's considered friendly, that the restaurants here are good, but that restaurant on the corner, don't go there, everyone hates it. I mean, those kinds of, intimate details.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so that's Casa Portuguesa tomorrow night at 7:30. Always enjoyed talking to the staff at EIA because, of course, it was Gilda's idea, wasn't it, long ago? And she had this idea. Everyone thought she was crazy, she said at the beginning. Some people still do, but that's the mark of genius, of course. And she's been proven right that it is a great service, and people swear by it. And you can find out more about it tomorrow at 7:30. And at 9, the Dream Team session, another good one. And of course, today the budget is going to be discussed, as was pointed out by Joseph, who's joined us this morning, Joseph Fisher. Good morning to you, Joseph. Thank you for being with us this morning, and thank you for that reminder. Any thoughts on what might happen, Jacqui? Or would you prefer to defer to the experts who are going to be with us tomorrow night at 9?
What I always love about the experts is that they don't just give us the net, which is how are they going to go, but the reasons behind it, the politics, the inner workings, the constitutional law. So you start to understand, and I think I've said this before, that there's an internal logic that you may not be aware of, whether you agree with it or not, but they have their own logic on how things are going to go. So.
Very good. Okay, so we'll see Casa Portuguesa at 7:30, and we'll be with the Dream Team at 9, and we'll be talking about what's gone on with the budget. Oh, Mrs. M, that's a very fetching outfit she's got on there. I nearly put her onto the screen, which she'd never have forgiven me for. So she's going to be joining us a little later on. Anything else to report from EPHQ, Jacqui?
Okay, just some success I'd like to share, if you wouldn't mind, about
Always glad to hear of celebrations.
Yeah, well, we had a really successful Black Friday sale with Expats Portugal.
Very good, very good.
And for me, that says that despite the NHR, I mean, it was super successful. People are still falling in love with Portugal.
Oh, yeah.
And that's important to know. And that it's not just about taxes. There's so much more.
Well said, well said. For my article for the Portugal Resident this week, I am writing a love letter to Portugal, in fact. And and I've written a little poem as well. It's a little bit of a heads up for anyone who wants to read that.
You have to read it now.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. Don't make me, Jacqui. Don't make me.
No, I mean, can you do it? Or
no, I can't. No, I can't. But I'll give you a clue. I'm going to be quoting Pessoa, Camões, and Espanca, the great poets of Portugal, who I have to say are not quite as florid and exuberant in their love or in their writings about love as I am. And I was quite surprised by that. They're very down to earth and almost cynical. The Portuguese approach to romance is quite interesting. I mean, Floribela Espanca is all over the place, as you might expect. She is quite the sort of bright star that burnt fast. But those two gentlemen are quite actually cynical about love. But still, I quote them and I take their poetry and I raise them with a traditional British limerick, which is dedicated to Portugal and my love of this country.
Really?
Can't wait, can you?
That sounds amazing. Are you only allowed to read it after it's published?
Absolutely. That's how exactly you got it. That's how it works in the world. My editor will not forgive me if I give the game away. I mean, I might even get fired just for even mentioning it. So I think I should move on.
I heard nothing.
You're the very soul of discretion, Jacqui. I knew I could trust you with that information.
Well, I think one of the things that we're working on right now is a short webinar series. And so it's almost 3 phases. It's numbers. Yes. How much do things actually cost?
Yes.
And then what is behind those numbers? That's going to be another webinar. And which is behind the numbers is, okay, the cost of a coach in Portugal versus taking a Greyhound in the US. Now, any US citizen who's ever been on a Greyhound will tell you.
Unsurvived.
That could be very iffy at best.
Yes.
And so, we could give people numbers, and then it's not a reflection because it doesn't speak to the experience. But the last one we're going to do, and I would love for you to read this, is not just behind the numbers, but beyond the numbers, and about our love of Portugal.
Yes, absolutely. That's right. And the numbers are helpful and indicative, aren't they? But they're only part of the picture. So congratulations on your line of thought there. And looking forward to being part of that.
And the numbers are helpful. You're going to read the poem in the last one.
I'm hoping the poem will be picked up and published by Penguin or somebody of that literary stature.
That would be great, but at least you'll read it beyond the numbers for the love of Portugal.
I will. Jerry's going to love it because it's a limerick, and I think the English and the Irish share a love of the limerick. I think so. He will be delighted to. I might even get him to accompany me on the guitar. Jacqui, I know you would. Wouldn't it be fantastic? An evening with Munson and Lawler.
I think, you know what? I'm actually really excited. I think we should build that last one.
It's only a limerick, but I haven't got much material. Okay, well, I'll work on it.
No, I'm sure we can build something all around that one. That would be amazing. Okay.
All right. Have a great day. Bon dia to you. Thank you so much for being here. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Bye.
All right. Ciao, ciao. See you. Bye for now. There she goes. Nice big round of applause. Jacqui from Expats Portugal. Hey, all drama. What's going on here, Mr. S? Sound a bit grumpy this morning. Let's have a look. 1,200 is not nominal for me, and I'm an American. Says Mr. S. tune in tomorrow night and find out exactly what it costs to use Casa Portuguesa tomorrow evening. Find out for yourself. Obviously, it's not everyone is a fan of everything. It's horses for courses. I know people absolutely love using have used the services of Casa Portuguesa and absolutely love the process, and they want that kind of level of service. Others are like, oh no, I would be so what's the word, smothered by that level of attention, and I would much prefer to do it myself. Thank you very much. Whatever floats your boat, however you go about it, find out for yourself if they are for you tomorrow night at 7:30. That's how we roll here on the Good Morning Portugal show. We don't make decisions for you. We bring you the information, and you can decide for yourself as a grown-up adult. Isn't that the best way to be? I've been called crazy most of my life. I like it, and always be sure to say thank you when it happens. Okay, thank you very much for that. Oh, and Carpe Diem, more life advice here in Portugal. If you need to know anything, ask at the local cafe. Yes, we did that. Oh, my word. Mrs. M will tell you about what happened when we asked at the local cafe for some accommodation. Our friends found their first rental that way. It wasn't on any website either. No, nor was ours. We got 2 houses for the price of 1, we thought, with our rental. And Rui, the man who we met through the cafe, was great. He said yes to all of our questions. We're going to get both of these houses for whatever it is, 400, 500 euros a month. Saying yes. So we could rent the other one out and start a little business. And, no problem. Could we drill for oil here? Could we build a 21-story apartment block here? It was all green lights. It was green all the way. And we moved in with such great hopes, only to find that the lady renting the house was still living in one of the houses, and she used to turn the water off at night. So I do take your point, Carpe Diem. It is the way to go, or one of the ways to go, and you can get great information at your local cafe, but also you need to exercise. I wished I'd known Gilda and her team at that point, and I could have at least found out a little bit more about the arrangement we were blithely wandering into. But, you live and learn, and I've got some great stories to tell about our early life here in Portugal. I might not mention actually to Mrs. M because she's still got a lot of past pain and trauma around that around that time of being here in Portugal. Squire's in. Morning, Squire. Bon dia todos. How are you this morning? Antonio F is here, I see, as well. And Garvo, you were here. A good moment for me to mention the wine club on, when will this be? The first Monday of the month. So that's going to be the 4th of December. Let me just show you what we've got on offer for that evening. Yes, the wine club continues. We've tasted over 50 wines. I think it must be like 60 or 70 different bottles of Portuguese wine, and the journey continues, and that will be under the leadership. Will be educated by the Whitbys next Monday, the 4th of December, and it's going to be Espumante and Madeira. Why, having tasted 50, 60, 70 wines, have we never tasted Madeira wine? That is a serious omission. And it's going to be put right on Monday, the 4th of December at 8 p.m., where Michael and Catherine Whitby will not only talk us through Madeira and the importance of understanding Madeira wine when you are living in Portugal, but also that beauty on the left there, which we have tried before, but we haven't had this combination. Because what's happened in recent times on the Good Morning Portugal Wine Club is that we seem to be drinking 2 drinks rather than just 1. Somebody suggested it, and then we've stayed with that pattern. So we're revisiting Terras de Domo, the wonderful Espumante with a beautiful characteristic bottle, very distinctive bottle on the shelves. And they do, I think, at least 3 variants of their fizz. That green one is the dry one that we'll be trying on Monday, the 4th. So do join us for that with a bit of fun. And I know Michael and Catherine know a lot about wine, so it'll be a great education as well. Oh, I've got the wrong ticker tape on the screen. I think this is the right one now. Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal. No, that was yesterday's. Where's it gone? With Mrs. M. Oh, here we go. Hola, bon dia, alegria, tudo bem? What does the M in Mrs. M stand for? She's going to be joining us in a few minutes. join Mr. and Mrs. M as Carl shares his as yet undisclosed step-by-step plan with the boss, that's Mrs. M, for helping people move to Portugal in 2024. And of course, if you're already here, helping you to love life in Portugal even more. Stand by for that. Mrs. M is limbering up, twerking and tweaking behind the scenes and ready to join us quite soon. I think she looks a bit flustered, actually. Maybe she heard me talking about that earlier house we lived in. She did. Oh dear. That's very... I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. Okay. Well, don't worry, everyone. I'll face the music in just a moment, he says, as everyone draws closer to their edge of their seat to find out how Mrs. M is going to respond to the sharing of that information this morning. Thanks, Carpe Diem. Kind of a Pat Benatar sentiment, those Portuguese poets. Yeah, I think you're right there, James. Love is a battlefield. Well, he lost an eye, didn't he? Camões lost an eye in battle. And he swam around a boat. He was in some kind of shipwreck, and his treasured poems were under one arm whilst he was swimming. Did he lose an arm and an eye? Yeah, love is definitely a battlefield when you're Camões. I'm not. I don't know. Actually, thinking about it, I don't know if he did lose those limbs and an eye, or that limb and an eye, in a love-related incident. I will look into it. Now, let me put onto the screen. I did try and put it onto the screen, but we've still got Esperanto and Madeira on there. Little bit distracted this morning. It is actually the Portugal restoration of Independence Day this Friday. So there you go. Did you add yourself to the screen, Mrs. M?
I sure did.
You are very
did.
loud.
Now tell me.
You're very loud.
Am I?
Could you turn your microphone down?
How's that?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see how we get on. But that is better. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to drag you down that road to do you remember those two houses that we thought we were hiring for, what was it? Renting for 400 a month, and it was two houses, and we could build a condo on there if we wanted to. Was it 500, as you recall?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was going to be one of those elusive buy to lets. Rent to buys.
That was another of our questions. Could we buy it one day? See.
And they said we need to make the decision within the year, but we could buy the house.
Okay. All right. So you're not over it, are you?
No, it's fine. I didn't hear the story that you were telling. I could just hear you talking about it.
Good news coming in that Palmeira is open again. That's fantastic. So our meetup today will be at Palmeira. See you there, everybody. Including
That's interesting.
You. Why?
That's really interesting because, like 2 weeks ago, you said you were handing it back to the community.
Yeah. What? Oh, it's really.
But you're not,
really,
are you?
really,
you're still going. It's still running.
Really very. I'll come back to that question, if I may, in a sort of politician sort of way.
Yes, yeah, you should.
When I figured out what I'm going to say about that to you. Okay. If you need to know anything, ask at the local cafe. Now that's how we met Rui, isn't it? Why have you just adjusted your camera? Is there something on the shelves that shouldn't be seen?
It's up too high. It's like it just looks like I'm looking down.
I see.
Excuse me.
Okay. Very natural this morning.
Yeah, it's like I'm. It's very natural. You're going to take that comment off.
Yeah. Okay. What? So that you can adjust your screen.
Yeah. Sorry. I think there's a bit.
Oh, blimey! So
I think there's a bit of a time delay as well. So.
Okay. Well, we can work with that.
Thank you.
And there is a time delay. I just said bless you, and you said thank you about 10 seconds later. Okay. So maybe this isn't working so well. The Studio 2 test is not brilliant, but we will persevere with this morning. Okay. So I want to share with you this morning, if I may, not only the fact that Friday is a public holiday, everybody. So that is Independence Day, independence from Spain. Restoration of independence from Spain on December the 1st is coming Friday, and that's why the beer festival is happening on Friday.
How do the Portuguese celebrate it? How do they celebrate it?
How would you guess the Portuguese celebrate that in the way that they celebrate most things?
Drinking, festa, a grill, grandma, kids running around.
There you go. That's it, and that's how it's going to be, exactly like that at the beer festival.
Maybe lots of people bringing lots of dishes and everybody out giving all the expats.
Yes. Well, actually, no need for that because here you can buy food, you can get curry, you can get incredible, solely finesse American food and pizza there, as well as all those
Fantastic.
beers and bands. That's how we're going to be celebrating this coming Friday, and those celebrations, festivities will go through until Saturday as well. Right. I asked the question cheekily this morning, Mrs. M. What does M stand for? Of course, Munson in one context, but also M for migration, Mrs. M, Mrs. Migration, I would say. And
Oh,
you're
I've
an
never
important
thought of
part of
that.
this team. Well, you're not exactly
Really?
an obvious and regular part of this team, but you are there as
No.
as the backbone of this partnership, of course. And you are well known around the world for your insights when it comes to migration. Your notable Expats Everywhere interview, and another
Yeah, I'm
one
more
coming
known.
up.
I'm more known for moaning about Carl Sardish and mold. I could be Mrs. Mold, actually. That's more
M
fitting.
could stand for mouldy as
I'm-
well, couldn't it?
Yes, that's what I just said. I don't think you heard that before the time delay, but yeah, I'm more known for that than I am with my actual astrology channel or with what I do with you. But yeah, there's another one coming out, and I think they release every Saturday, so this week might be my week. We were talking
Yes.
about how migration has changed because obviously Josh and Kaylee have lived in lots of different countries, and I've lived in lots of different countries, and this time it's been really different, and I think that's really by and large to technology and how that's really sort of shaped what it's like to be a migrant these days. I think it's like migrant light, like when I've migrated before or lived in other countries, it's been like migration full fat or full sugar, and now it's migration light, because you don't really have to migrate, do you? You do move countries, but you can still live pretty much exactly the same life that you lived before, like your soundscape is pretty much the same. If you're used to listening to your favorite podcast, you can just get it now wherever you are. But 10 years ago, if you're in another country, it's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yes,
Everything's so
well said.
accessible.
And that's why Expats Everywhere pay you the big bucks for that sort of insight and and those sort of ideas. What I'm immediately think of when you say that is, back in the day, people who travelled the world. Pete Bleach will know about this. There'll be a Sunday evening ritual when you're living abroad. 30 or 40 years ago, where you've got some loose change and you go and queue up at a phone box and you phone home for your weekly phone call, or you might send a postcard home. And that's changed completely, isn't it? You can be in touch with your relatives all the time now if you so want to be on WhatsApp, Zoom, or whatever.
I mean that kind of takes some of the mystery. I mean, I do still do a weekly-ish phone call home. But yeah, like when I first went to live in France when I was 18, it was a telephone card. I would buy one of those, and that was it. Once it was gone, it was gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very different now. You just like WhatsApp somebody, and again, it's like you're still connected with everybody, only you're not physically there.
And do you think that's a good or a bad thing? Because how you've put it, how you framed it is, migration ain't what it used to be. It's you used to be all in, and you knew you were away, you knew you were abroad and cut off from people in a kind of way. Now it's not quite like that. Which do you prefer?
Well, I don't want to compare them because they're really not comparable. You can't really compare them at all. They're completely different situations. I mean, back then I had to work for initially I worked for an English company that operated in France, which gave me the framework to be able to do that. And then later, because I'd got to know French owners and because I could speak French really well, I was able to work for a French campsite owner. So I was working for a French company and then able to get a French bank account. But, now you don't have to interact with the local economy if you don't want to. You can just, if you can work online, you can work anywhere.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
So, it really isn't, I step out of our front door and I notice that we've got English speakers across the road. Hello, if you're watching. We've got some Germans a couple of doors up. We've got actual real life Portuguese people in three of the corners around us.
Authentic Portuguese people, yeah.
And even though they're authentic Portuguese people, like one of the couples is completely international, speaks about 5 languages between them. The other one is actually French Portuguese. So, you know, and like when I was living in France years ago, it was all French. You know, I was like the only English girl in the village for a while. You know, that's just
I've
not the
noticed
case
that
here
about
anymore.
France. There are a lot of French people in France for some reason. They
Yeah,
must
no,
love
but I
it.
mean, they were a bit more protective. I mean, I'm sure they've got people all over the place now. I mean, that was almost 30 years ago. So yeah, well, it was 30 years ago. 31. Oh, that moment when you realise, you know, you went to school 40 years ago or something. That's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just very different, very, very
So many
different.
happy,
And
so many happy memories this morning.
well, no,
we are,
I mean, the other big change is like when I was living in France and when I was living in Italy and when I was living in Bali, I was single. That makes a huge difference. You know, I had to, I didn't have to, but you know, I made friends. You know, I was, you know, working for a big sort of company each time. And I made friends. I was part of the community. You get part of the community very quickly. But if you move to a place where you don't have to interact and you're working from home and you're also managing a family that doesn't go out either, then you don't really have a very strong migration experience. It's just when you set
that's it.
foot
Yeah,
outside your door, you know,
that's
like
right.
that's why I call it migration light. You know, I mean, it might feel very strong and different for people who are just moving over, or for people who've never lived in other countries. But from my perspective, it's you know, you know, I just kind of feel like I'm at home really, because
Yeah.
I live my life as if I'm at home. And it's on a rare occasion, you know, when we drive inland and we go somewhere where it's really not full of tourists. And we say, "Oh, it feels like we're abroad. It feels like we're on holiday."
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's very interesting, and I guess it's a reflection of how the world has changed as well. You know, that we can live because of technology and the way that the world is being designed for us by technological people. We don't
yeah,
have to be quite so social, do we? And there's more convenience
yeah.
and an efficiency of a certain kind, isn't there, in ordering things, in making your lifestyle a little bit more convenient and efficient when you're ordering things online, in a way that you don't have to interact with other people, which you had to
Oh,
do
yeah.
when that wasn't so much the case.
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you know, in some parts of Portugal, they've got Uber.
Yeah,
Crikey, if I lived in an Uber area, I wouldn't interact with anyone probably, because, you
yeah.
know, there'd be no need for a taxi. You could get your takeouts delivered straight to you. You could get your shopping delivered straight to you.
And your Uber
It's
driver,
perfect.
might be, Lithuanian or
Yeah,
Bangladesh.
they're probably
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and then you
so
could get
it's
in
totally,
Uber.
totally
You
different.
can get in Uber and say, "Have you met any Portuguese people recently?" Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I met an actual Portuguese person. I went out on the street.
Exactly. It is just like that.
Yes. Yeah. So
I mean,
that
it is
is,
bonkers.
yeah.
So, I mean, do I really liked my experience of living in a different country, when I needed to find my way to be part of that community. And I found a way to be kind of part of a community. I don't think any foreigner can ever become part of any community fully. Like in the UK, you know, when we've moved from town to town, we've always been, you know, a grockle or an outsider or whatever you want to, you know, there's always names for people who come from the outside. So
Quite
I've
used
always felt like an outsider anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. But
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel like I'm in Portugal. And I really like how we live here. It's great.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Well, thank you
I
for
would I
that.
would like to have a greater sense of belonging. And I guess now the kids don't need me as much. That's more possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I think then you may well be remembered differently in the coming months as your new Expats Everywhere video is published, and the perception of you as the English woman who moans about mold and slippery calçadas will change, and you'll come up with the
yeah,
phrase.
I'll be moaning about. I mean, you asked me if I think it's better or worse. I mean, I don't really think it's better or worse, but I do think there's. I mean, obviously with different times, but there's a lack of romance about being in this country that I had in other countries, because it was much more of a big adventure, because there was so much that I didn't understand, and part of my personality likes that level of risk.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this has changed migrants as well, hasn't it? Because people who feared that sort of stuff didn't go anywhere, and now they don't have to fear that stuff. And so they're more likely to move. That's interesting. I made a new Portuguese friend last night. We're going to come back to the comments that have been inspired by what you shared so far this morning. Other people remembering the great adventures.
I wonder what it's like for other people, who've lived in multiple places. I mean, it's very, very different, isn't it?
They are telling us. They are telling us. But I want to introduce you first to a new Portuguese friend I met. I get out and about. I walk the dogs twice a day, and I get to a little insight into. Well, I meet my German neighbour, but I also meet Portuguese dog walkers and other people, and exotic Portuguese characters like this one who I met. It was a little bit soggy, I have to say, when I encountered him or her last night.
I know who you're about.
Beautiful salamander.
Now, it's hard to get a sense of scale with that, isn't it? But he was about 5 or 6 inches long. He was beautiful. He was glistening there on the street. And I thought it was like a child's toy, like those lizards we used to get, little sort of rubbery lizards that kids used to collect. And it looked like one of those glistening in the street light. It was dark. It was rainy. And there he was, or she. A beautiful creature. Is that a fiery salamander, I wonder? But they really, really fantastic bit of nature to encounter last night.
It's really quite magical. I remember us trying to save about 10 of them when we were living in Frisianda. Do you remember? Or Caxarias?
Yeah.
There was a whole load of them, and they were perilous. They were in a really dangerous situation.
I was clearing up a flood situation, wasn't I? We were getting some flooding, and I had to dig a little trench, and suddenly all these little salamanders appeared. So there they are, these exotic creatures that you can see over here in Portugal. Let's go to some of those comments then that have been inspired by what you've been sharing with us this morning, Mrs. M. Before I share with my new migration plan for 2024, we'll come back to that in just a moment. I think I've got a nice little step plan. You haven't seen it. I'm going to run it past you and face your feedback. Okay. What?
No, I'm just thinking, you say you're going to do something, and then you might, change your mind.
That is
so
true.
I'm interested to see.
All right. Well, I'm sharing it in that spirit to see if it's got legs or not.
Yeah, I love your gung ho nature doing this live on air with me watching.
Gung ho is gung. You see, gung ho could be my middle name. Okay. Right. The itchiest bite.
Not hung low.
First, please. But the itchiest bite gets scratched first, though. But very true. That is a translation that is a difficult one.
What does that mean?
Oh, I see shadows moving in the background. Yeah. Good morning from Sarah Taylor, who's one of your fabulous guests on the not the Good Morning Portugal show. That's this show, isn't it? The Barefoot Broadcast.
Yeah.
Sarah's always brilliant. Who have you got on at 10 o'clock this morning, by the way?
I've got Benjamin Stubbs.
Benjamin Stubbs. Okay, so we better get on with it. We've got Michael Whitby with a bon dia todos don chuva VRSA. So rainy down there in the
Does rain in the Algarve.
Does rain in the Algarve. Remember where you heard it first. And a correction, chuvosa or chuvosa. And I did exactly that.
That's interesting because what? So it does rain in the Algarve.
Yeah, it does.
He did
it does.
Exactly what?
And yeah, he did exactly that. He went to the phone box on a Sunday night, I think, whilst sailing in the Med 30 years ago. Now, that's not very convenient, is it? If you've got to sail to the nearest phone box on a Sunday night as well. Yeah. Pete's recollections. You can always trust Pete for a great travel anecdote. My favorite was the old USSR. They had phone boxes, but no money or card slot. You could call for free. But if it was international, it wouldn't just be you and your connection that was listening. Yeah, right. That's great, isn't it? And so that's one of the great things going for communism is that all the phone calls are free. or they were over there in Russia. The migration Munsons, now just add them to the Monday mindful migration. Join the migration Munsons. Sometimes you can have too much alliteration, I think. Then it was an adventure, says Michael Whitby. True, and you said that, didn't you, Mrs. Ed?
I used to. This was before I was like driving, actually, and so I used to use a bike and a moped. I went all over the place. Like, it was great. I also got hit by a lorry, which was slightly less.
The sense of adventure, yes.
Yeah, I got hit by a lorry and struck by lightning in the same year. But it's part of the adventure. And I'd been hit by a lorry, and I'd seen it coming in my mirror, and so I leant into it because I knew it was going to knock me off and probably into one of those deep ditches. And I thought, crikey, I could be stuck there for ages unconscious. So I leant into it, and I got off at my nearest tobacconist because I was a bit shaken up. And I didn't realize that I was bleeding everywhere, but there was blood seeping through like 2 layers of fleeces. And the lady just closed the shop. She was ashen. She closed the shop, walked me around. She walked me around to the local doctors. She opened it because the doctor, I think, was closed for lunch, but she insisted that he came in and stitched me up and gave me a little tetanus jab. And then also recommend, it wasn't like a proper stitch up. It was like, got me like dressed so that I could go to hospital and have my arm seen to. And the lady, her husband, put my moped on the back of his truck, drove me there. And, they were really, really kind people. But, that's what I expected back then. And I think there are people here that are like that. There are people who are so gorgeous here that will absolutely help out somebody in need.
Yes. Yeah.
So I love that about living in Europe.
Yeah, hopefully you're not going to get that sort of experience.
I don't know, you might do.
You might, it's true. And if you did, I'm sure the Portuguese would respond in the same way as those lovely French people did. Bon dia todos.
Amazing.
We got Bob here. My thought on the difference today in keeping in touch is that it used to be intentional and purposeful to do so because it wasn't easy. That's a great point, actually, Bob, isn't it? When you
meant a little bit more.
It's like writing a letter instead of an email, isn't it? In an email, it's like, yeah, whatevs, bye, ciao for now. Whatever you said, yeah, I agree, blah. When you're penning a letter, you're saving things up for when you write the letter. When you're living abroad, you're saving things up for the Sunday night phone call, aren't you? I'll tell the folks back home this. But now it's just it's more of a constant, isn't it, rather than just episodic or saving things up to share with people. Very interesting. Not necessarily better or worse, but just different.
Well, you don't have to be a word, do you? So like back then, if I said to my parents I was going to phone them at a certain time, I would have to make an effort to get to that phone box and be there on time, and vice versa. So we used to actually make proper, and like when I was living in Bali, we used to make proper time to connect because we had the time difference. So it had to happen, or else it wasn't going to happen.
And they thought something terrible had happened, didn't they? If you didn't make the call, yes. But now, if you don't phone someone, it's like, oh, they just got busy. We'll talk later on today, later on this week.
I had an arrangement to speak to my parents 2 days ago, and I remembered at the last minute, and they said, "Oh, send them a WhatsApp, bit tied up at the moment, but I'll call you tomorrow."
Yeah,
so it's
because we can.
And that is good, and it's also bad. But I do miss the times when things meant maybe a little bit more than they do now. It's a bit like talk is cheap, or it feels a bit more casual. But that's not to say it's bad. I mean, there are other things that are really great from these times as well. I mean, we couldn't build our own businesses in another country. I don't think you and I would have the determination to do that if we had to do it in the old style.
Oh my goodness, that's what the Chamber of Commerce was for. That's why nowadays, can you imagine a millennial seeing the Man from Del Monte advert? It's like, why did that guy go and buy pineapples in a linen suit and a hat? Why did he go through all that rigmarole? Yeah. Why didn't he just send an email and say, do you want to sell some pineapples to me? I'll send you some PayPal money. Yeah. It's like that. Yeah. It used to be a big deal opening up a business in another country, didn't it? And only the Indiana Joneses of the business world would go and do that. And very successful they were too because of that. And now you're right. Anyone can start up a business pretty much anywhere. Because in some ways,
because food and drink is a lot less food and drink is a lot less individualized. I mean, my preference is to go and eat at a Portuguese place actually than a restaurant that's like Indian or Italian. I love the local cuisine here actually. It's it just reminds me of eating at my grandma's. I just flipping love it. But like things are really homogenized. You can go to a cafe and you can ask for a latte or cappuccino anywhere in the world. And people might not like it, but they know what you're talking about.
Yes, well said. Well said.
And it's easier for our kids. So yes, I sort of like do think, wow, those times are really quite amazing. And I recognize our kids have got a much better opportunity to make it in the world without one thing I really notice about being here right now is everyone puts this really massive sort of importance on speaking the language and being part of the culture, which I agree with. I think it's important. And I also recognize people are still in the pattern of believing that is necessary to have a life here. But the truth is it's not. And it's like the reality and the old way haven't quite caught up. It's not to say I don't have any intentions of improving my Portuguese or becoming more of a community. But to hold that as the truth that you have to do it or else you can't live here is simply not true. Because there are people.
People have proven all over the world that you don't have to speak the language. Yes.
And there are people running very successful businesses, very wealthy people who transact and live in countries all over the world that they have absolutely nothing to do with the culture. I mean, migration is just not what it used to be. It's completely different. I mean, we might as well call it world living rather than migration.
Very interesting.
You're not really leaving the old world behind to find a new world.
You're sort of transplanting, aren't you, in a way, or hybriding your life rather than making a wholesale change.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to pee on anyone's chips that's listening or downplay their move, because the conditions that they're moving in right now will be just right for their experience. Because otherwise they'd have moved 10 years ago when it's harder or it was a bit more challenging.
Okay, a few more comments then. You can pee on my chips in a moment when I share my plans with you. This is the other part of Bob's comment. Now it's so convenient and easy to keep in touch with family or friends. It is easy to put aside. Yes, that's so true. I can do it anytime. And I had a lovely conversation with my daughter yesterday, my middle daughter, and that had drifted because we can anytime. And we actually sat down and had a conversation. And it was absolutely wonderful. So, yes, you're absolutely right, Bob. Excellent insight, Mrs. M. Excellent insight, Bob. Jim as well here. When I lived in India years ago, we would book an international call 3 days in advance. You better be there for that then. The Post and Telegraph Office would send a runner to let you know when it came through. Sir, your international call is ready for you now. Oh, my goodness. That's incredible, isn't it? And for Joao de Nort, yes, the old days and adventures. Mine were in far western China in 1987-88. We've got people here who did it then and are doing it now, who've got experiences to speak of. It's quite incredible. Carpe Diem has rephrased his ask at the local cafe comment. So that's still true. Ask at the local cafe, but also apply risk management. Well said, Carpe Diem. Thank you for that rephrasing there. I think not being able to go back to Canada by driving our car has a different feel, though. We need a plane or a ship, aka. That is another psychological.
That's another thing that's really different from Brits moving to mainland Europe rather than people from another continent to continent. Because like when I was in Bali, I ran out of money. I mean, here's another thing that's really changed is money and how we manage money. So like when I was in Bali, I mismanaged my money massively and I ran out of cash and I needed my parents to sell my car back home. So that I could get some money. And it was so difficult, and it took something like 2 weeks for money to get to me. So a local friend of mine, his wife, who is Balinese, loaned me the money and I paid her back. Whereas now you can just PayPal, Venmo, whatever you want. If you've got someone that might help you, not that, we're asking for loans these days. Gone are those days, really. We're proper bona fide grown-ups. But if you need money now, yeah, I know. I've promoted us. If you need money now, it can just be wired over very easily. No problems at all.
Yeah. It was amazing 40 years ago, says Pete. I stayed in the embassy compound in Nepal for a while when I was a kid, and it was great. Dougie, great comment from Doug. I've noticed how lots of fun expat couples lead insular lives in Portugal. I've commented on this in a recent article. Yes, you can be. The times and the technology do lend themselves to insularity if you want that. I love Nepal and India in 2020. Fascinating, says Mr. S. Riding my flying pigeon bicycle across town to see friends and being the only white devil inside. Yes, he didn't take it badly. Take it badly. There he goes, the white devil in Western China. There, and that's also changed, isn't it? That kind of I don't know what it is. It's a sort of naivety, isn't it? It's not meant in any bad way. It's just like it can be taken badly, of course. But I think
it's joyful. Like I remember years ago when I was living in Bali, going up to a remote village up by a volcano. So I was on my moped, and all of a sudden these young kids cut me off. They saw me coming and they cut me off, or they saw me and kind of whizzed past me and cut me off, and they wanted to take photos. They were like, they were kind of smiling and laughing, but it was all lighthearted. It wasn't like creepy.
I don't get that with Portuguese people. Do you? I very rarely get a Portuguese person asking me to have a selfie with me. It's usually the other way around. Right, Mrs. M, I need you to stop commenting about every comment I put on the screen. Okay, you know what this is like when you're producing and presenting shows yourself. Okay. So I wonder if you might take a batch approach to this now. Otherwise, we're going to be here at 4 o'clock and miss the Barefoot broadcast, which starts in about 20 minutes. So that reminds me of my first visit to Ireland. The Uber driver was Albanian, and the first 5 or 10 people I engaged with were all from other countries. Very interesting, this conversation. Thank you for suggesting it, Mrs. M. It felt like it took 2 days to actually meet the authentic Irish. That's incredible, isn't it? Maybe they'll actually make a commercial opportunity of that. Meet the authentic Irish. At 10 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What's this? Pete, Mistress, we went for tea with the king at the palace back then, a bit different in 2020. Imagine that. Traveling and then being invited for tea with the local king. Does anyone else find that your mind needs some time to start handing Portuguese in the morning? What does that mean? I went into a cafe early one morning and completely stalled. Oh, handling, I think it is. It does make you work a bit more. Living abroad, I think, is what Gary's saying. Yeah, and I think it's like Sudoku, isn't it? They say Sudoku keeps your mind sharp. Definitely, Portuguese language does. Yeah. And I've noticed a lot of people can't handle English very well first thing in the morning, Gary. So it might not just be Portuguese. Phew, it was a salamander. At least it wasn't another toilet picture. If your stools are black with yellow flecks, Pete, you need to see a physician quite urgently, I would say. Nepal was great back then too. Great memory.
Sweet corn.
Stop eating sweet corn. Thank you, Mrs. M. Great barbecued sweet corn, maybe. Great memories. I was with the Peace Corps back then, and I lived in a village in a military police state. Is that right? MP state. Very different times. Jim, thank you for sharing this morning. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your recollections of traveling far afield back in the day. Nearly 70% of people I've talked with here in Ericeira are Portuguese. That's great, James. And that'll be quite a good index, actually, for the purposes of moving to Portugal, which I might talk about in just a moment. What is the local level of Portugueseness? It would be quite a good index to have for people who want to pick the right level. I think folks will need to move further afield than Portugal to experience a real culture disparity. Well, there is the Alentejo. Even life in rural Portugal means we're never too far from other expats. Yeah, if that's what you're trying to avoid, you will have to go further afield, probably. I went back 3 times, and as you say, the past is a foreign country. People do things differently there. Yeah, nice one, Pete. This show is perfect for you this morning. Whilst in Western China, I was visited by an American gentleman from the embassy, a 2-day journey, mind you, who was very keen on my observations and experiences out there. It felt quite James Bond. Brilliant, Gerald. Loving these stories this morning. Anything before coffee is a struggle, Gary. Big Tony. That is just such a great Portuguese saying. I will see you, but I may not. I think I might have missed that one. And the wheel that squeaks the loudest always gets oiled first. Isn't that the truth? It is. It is true. And at the risk of starting a tape recorder somewhere in the world, I'm going to say CIA out loud. Was that who you got the visit from? Couldn't possibly say. It's the right answer to that, isn't it? The American version of that would be the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Thank you, James, for that. Oh, in fact, he didn't say the man from the embassy, but it was certainly strange. Yeah, can you imagine? Can I speak to you a moment about your experiences? Anyone got any great crested newts or something rare that we can introduce to the land where they want to start? Yes, that's a good strategy there, Gary Austin. Get an endangered species in where they're proposing some mining there. We got a visit, says Pete, from the Narcs when I was teaching Afghan history at a very posh private school founded by Elizabeth I. It was rather amusing, is of course the phrase you would use at a posh private school, Peter, I think. Do come in. Cucumber sandwich, anyone? People are the same the worldwide. You see, that's the thing, isn't it? They are the same the worldwide. Underneath the cultures, the customs, and the appearances, of course, there is that great connection, that human connection. Underneath the beautiful differences that we can see and appreciate as well. Every country we lived in, we meet good Samaritans. Beautiful. Speaking of listening in, I was on a coastal journey from Shanghai and Chinese opera came on loudly at 6 a.m. The volume control didn't work, so I snipped the wires. That sounds James Bond. Not the red wire! Draldenaut. What's this about the bull ring? Not the one you spray under your arms before a visit to the bull ring. Is that introducing the links? Ah, yes, mention of links there. Very good. Shortly after, my cabin was visited by 3 PLA soldiers who were very interested in the overhead speaker. Obviously, someone couldn't hear. Oh, I see. So it was a 2-way communication system, your Chinese opera system there. Reminds me of the time I hacked into the Natural History Museum speakers and broadcast Christmas carols. Fun times. I heard yesterday that if an area of land has suffered a fire, then any environmental studies produced before that are rendered nullified. Strangely, we had a lot of fires. Garvo sounding quite conspiratorial over there in Al Vazra. It'd be good to have you on the show actually sometime soon to talk about that mining situation, Gary, and to get a balance there in conjunction with those who want to explore, such that the lives of the local people aren't too badly disrupted. As you say, we can clean our windows, but we can't clean our lungs. I think that is the banner under which people are making their objections felt at the moment over that way in Ancial, Alvazra, that part of the country. I think it's very difficult to weave into an established Portuguese community. I often feel like an intruder in some cafes. It might be the pink trousers, the cravat and blazer, Douglas, that's doing that, and the entourage as well, and the Rolls Royce parked outside. You're causing a stir. I think you don't have to. You and me probably need to go to Portuguese outfitters. I'm the same. I wear weird shoes as well, which sometimes mark me out as a foreigner. Maybe we need to be taken by a Portuguese.
You just need to buy some of those like jeans that go up to your
around your
boobs
belly.
almost. Yeah.
Yes, high-waisted jeans, a flat cap, a local flat cap, a check shirt. Dougie will fit in beautifully.
That.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to do it but Portugal needs people to integrate, to continue the traditions of the past and make new ones. Absolutely spot on, Pete. We had a conversation about this last night, and we are taking this seriously, this community, for sure. We had Ukrainian refugees teaching their traditional music and dance. Try living in, what was it, throwing down the gauntlet, the challenge. Try living in Mauritania. Thank you, Michael. To our local, the Ukrainian music and dance was introduced to the local primary school kids. It was lovely. And talking of wonderful places in the world, good morning from Cairo, and good morning from Cairo. Good morning to you. I have got I've got a video of your dancing there. Talking of dancing and different cultures, don't forget Cairo are a wonderful introduction to Egyptian culture over there in Caldas No solo life. Don't put one of those links under your armpit. It could get nasty. Smash that like button. Cheers, T-Duck. I want to talk a little bit about my migration plans or how we can help people, Mrs. M. Are you okay there? You look like you're about to leave at any minute.
No, I'm noticing we've got a rather noisy little 5-year-old in this room with me.
Yeah, this Studio 2 thing's not working, is it? A huge part of living abroad in those days was writing letters. There you go. I managed to, I was engaged to Mrs. Donort then, and we wrote every other day. Oh, how you see, it's not the same in email or WhatsApp or text, is it? However, letters took up to 2 weeks to cross. It was quite surreal. And I bet you really look forward to receiving those letters and treasure every one of them. How lovely, Gerard North.
I remember international love letters. It's beautiful.
Do you? Obviously not from me. That was in a. That was in a. Could those early boyfriends write then? That was in a major metropolitan area, of course, Dublin, so very international. You've never had one of Pete's licorice and sweet corn pancakes. Okay, after much experimentation, we have cracked crumpets. What? So if you want homemade jam and crumpets and olives and oil, do pop over. How lovely. And folks, Gary's a crumpet man. Folks, if you haven't done it already, hit the like button. Cheers, Antonio F. Okay, so let's don't forget the dad jokes. Little note to self there for Mrs. M, because she loves them. I was saying the frown and your skyward look is just a sign of appreciation of the dad jokes. So here we go. Are there too many hearts on this screen? Do we think? There are. Okay, so she doesn't like it already.
Maybe. Am I allowed to talk now? Maybe.
No,
but
yet.
The heart.
Go on.
Oh, am I allowed to talk? The heart does kind of mirror the quiff that your cockerel has got.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. Not. Okay. So here we are on the screen. This is my 4-step process. Okay, we're helping people move to Portugal in 24. People still want to move to this wonderful country despite recent changes in this last year, most notable of which is the NHR tax regime, which we'll find out about its fate later on today. And we'll talk about that on the webinar sessions tomorrow evening, of course, and on tomorrow morning's show. Top left-hand corner, you can see Bobby O'Reilly's approach to moving to Portugal through investment. Some of you who came here to retire might as well be investing and starting a business here, given how busy you are. Bobby O'Reilly knows how to do that and has a whole process set up for helping people move to Portugal through the investment approach. Now, from our point of view here, this 4-step plan of hashtag PT24. Do you like what I did there, Mrs. M? And I think it's the 4 C's, okay? So there are the basics and there are the extras, because I'm trying to, as complex as all of this can become, I'm trying to simplify it, okay? So my first C is to commit. And if you sign up with gmpvip.com, we can have a 30-minute call, which will help you with the other 3 of these C's, which I'll tell you more about in just a moment. You'll have a private community. You'll have a whole stack of online resources. Remember on Monday, Bob saying, whoa, Carl, all that stuff over there at GMP VIP, I didn't have the time to look. I have now, and it's amazing. So you get all of that. It's a good starting point. It connects you with a community here, which is the second C. Watch this morning show. Come to a meetup. That's happening at lunchtime today. Join a Discovery Weekend. That's in Coimbra on the 9th and 10th. So we've got committing and we've got connecting. I think those are the first 2 building blocks when you're moving. We didn't have that, did we, Mrs. M, when we were thinking of moving to Portugal? All we had, I think, was Portugal. Pure Portugal, living the good life. One Facebook group, I think, didn't we?
Yeah.
and asking at the
And
cafe.
they were a little bit acerbic in there, I often found, you know, so like if you put some comment in, there was some narky expat that was there kind of almost virtue signaling all the time. Yeah,
Some
I didn't find it very
very
friendly.
early virtue
Yeah.
signaling. What's the
Very
internet like?
earnest.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like, you know, what's the internet like in central Portugal? 5G is going to kill us. It was that kind of thing, wasn't it? You know, like, can someone
Yeah,
recommend?
I got really schooled on like wanting to have internet in the house by somebody who didn't know me at all. And it's like, oh,
And you watch TV and eat meat as well. You have no business in this group. Okay, all right. So that's a little bit of a caricature. I'm sorry. No, Pure Portugal,
yeah.
absolutely wonderful.
And they were very helpful as well. You know, I learned a lot of great
Absolutely,
stuff
and they
there.
can't be held responsible for some of the extreme views expressed in their Facebook group, which is, of course, something all of us who host groups have to deal with at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Right. So committing and connecting, I would say those are the first two steps, the first two C's there. Then there's the consultation. And as I said before, you know, you have to find the approach to working with professionals or not to suit your own personal needs, tastes, and budget, of course. And that's how we roll here. We like to work with everybody and share everybody's propositions. And then you make the decision for yourself who you want to consult with. So whether it's migration, real estate, the legal side, whatever it is to do with moving to Portugal, our job here, I think, is to introduce you to those people who you might not otherwise find, and you make your own decision. You know, that's how I like Good Morning Portugal to be a broad church, if you like, of different views, of different capabilities, different professionals. And everyone's capable of making their own choice with that. Whether it's a one-stop shop approach like Expats Portugal, where you want everything taken care of for you, and some people do, and some people have a great experience with that, or whether it's you're the sort of person who wants to do everything yourself. You might have a limited budget, for example, and you want to do everything yourself, or you might have loads of money and still want to do everything yourself. There are people who can help you with various parts of that. We bring them to you. We stick them up on the tee, and you knock them down the fairway, not literally, of course. And the final C in my 4C approach here is the conversion of you got to remember at some point, because they don't take dollars here still, to rock up here with your dollars, and it's not going to go down especially well. You need to do the conversion, and our recommendation always, of course, when we talk with Sarah at Spartan FX, is to do that sooner rather than later. It's not like going on holiday. You can just pop down the travel agent. Do you remember that, Mrs. M? Going back, talking of 30 years ago again, how did you go about getting your French francs? How did you do that?
Yeah, I just got some before I left. I went
Where though? You didn't have a
I went
card,
to the
did
post
you?
office.
Yeah.
No. And then when I got there, I just had to, you know, I earned a living there. Yeah.
And you got 10 francs pretty much to the pound back in those days before the euro, didn't you? And you could get them from the post office, like you said. You could get them from the bank, and now you can do it all online, and you can get cards. You get Revolut, and you can get Wise multi-currency cards. It's quite amazing the difference now. Certainly a lot more convenient, but you've got to do that. Transferring your dollars or your pounds or whatever other your Canadian loonies or your South African rand, that can all be done with Spartan FX, who we like to work with, and of course who make it nice and easy for you. So anything you want to say about that first level, then the basics: commit, connect, consult, and convert. Have I missed anything there, Mrs. M?
Can I think of another C?
Can you?
It's interesting you were talking about alliteration with James not too long ago. I love that, actually. It's easy, isn't it? Commit, connect, consult, convert.
Yeah.
I like it.
It does.
Like
convert sounds possibly a little bit religious at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I was wondering what I thought you were going to convert people into like selling it for you.
Good idea.
Like a pyramid scheme.
I'll write that down. Yes, how about that? Moving to Portugal, network marketing style with Good Morning Portugal. Yes, you too can be a platinum field commander on level 1 and make $5,000 a week. Yes, great idea. Thank you for that. I knew it was a great idea to ask you about this. And then there's the extras. There's our new news and information area for those people who find 90 minutes a day, talking of commitment. If coming to the Good Morning Portugal show every morning is a bit too much, we now have, talking of migration light, we have Portugal News Light over at News and Information, aka learnaboutportugal.com. We also have the Portugal Club, which is for those who need an extra little bit of hand holding or who are going out of their way above and beyond the normal involvement and wanting to do some pretty special stuff and become extraordinary expats. We had a great meeting last night, for example. Every Tuesday, we have a check-in at 8 for those people who might benefit from that, especially if you're in the States or over in UK still and you're working on your plans and you want to check in with other people who are on the same path. We do that every Tuesday at 8. And then at 8:30, you have a special guest. Now, last night, we had Jason on, who was talking about a way of recognizing the fact that that us as foreigners are about 1 in 10 of the population, and how we might manage that in going forward. It was a really good discussion. Thank you to those of you who were there last night for that. And the best idea I think we came up with are some how-to guides. So to veer away from the politics, we had some really good insight on this whole thing about how foreigners can be blamed for some of the problems that are going on in the country. Well, Nuna, who joined us to talk about that, said, that's politics. Politics can make things look bigger and more ugly than they actually are. Have you experienced that yourself? He asked us, and he told us this lovely story of being at Sporting Lisbon. I really welled up when he told this story last night. He was at a Sporting Lisbon match with his dad. And an old Spanish gentleman had found himself in the Sporting Lisbon fan end or enclosure or part of the ground. And when the Spanish team who Sporting Lisbon were playing in some sort of European tournament scored, he was the only one, this old Spanish guy was the only one to stand up and go, yes, goal! And of course, among loads of Sporting Lisbon fans, he was about as welcome as a fart in a spacesuit, basically. And 2 Sporting fans started to abuse this old gentleman, telling him, reading him his fortune, if you like, in no uncertain terms, and being quite abusive towards him. And then, do you know what happened, Mrs. M?
Everyone piled in to soothe it and to stop it.
Absolutely. The Sporting fans turned on these 2 reprobates among them, their fellow fans, and told him to wind it in and leave the old guy alone supporting his team. And that, to me, is such a beautiful illustration of what it's the humanness that Michael Whitby was talking about earlier on. That's what people are really like, isn't it? Underneath it all, underneath all of it, that's what people are really like. And occasionally we just have to be reminded of that. And that was a beautiful reminder of it. So that's, the political thing can seem inflamed and over exaggerated. And actually, our experience of being in Portugal is great. We're not getting that sort of pushback. And a great way, we thought, okay, let's get away from the politics and more into the practical, and come up with some guides on how to engage locally. How to more than just chucking a few coins in the bucket for the Bombeiros. Get involved. Actually, get involved with the local association, whether it's a Bombeiros cultural or whatever. I'm very aware.
Tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow there's I sent the details to you. There's the Christmas fair locally.
Yeah.
That's let me just see if I can find it. So for people in this Silver Coast area, you might want to go to Jacqueline Branco's Christmas fair. I'm just trying to find the details. Maybe we'll talk about it on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm aware that it's 2 minutes.
Are you still there? I can't hear you.
It's 2 minutes until barefoot broadcast time.
I mean, there's loads of. All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye now and rush down and make myself a drink.
Well, okay. I think I got off luck there. I think your feedback
thanks for having me on.
Favorable. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's a really vast thing that you really cover in so many different ways, and the support that I see that you really do well is helping with the continuity of sort of helping people feel at home. You've created a safe space for people to ask questions and to connect and to be reassured. I really see that the hand holding is one of the really big things that you create the time and space for. And I see the power in that. I mean, if we'd have had, I mean, we probably still wouldn't have used our own services because we like to struggle like muppets, don't we? And also we've never like been flush with loads of money before, not at that time, you know, when we're moving. But I think, you know, if you want a bit more reassurance, then I think what you offer is really good.
Thank you,
Really
Mrs. M.
beautiful.
All right, nice big round of applause. It's the catcher on the Barefoot broadcast.
Oh yeah, with Ben, and we're talking about being unapologetically you, of course, which is a continuation of the ongoing theme that I've been having with Ben and also with Sarah and also with many of the guests there. So hopefully see you on the Barefoot broadcast real soon. Bye for now.
In a few minutes. Take care. Cheers. Mrs. M, isn't she fantastic? Good stuff. She will be better known for Migration Light rather than mold and slippery calçadas when you see her next on the Expats Everywhere channel. And a couple of quotes now from Antonio Barbosa. Portugal will still remain golden, visa or not, NHR or not. Don't come if you don't want to fall in love. Read my love letter to Portugal in an upcoming Portugal residence soon. I'm drafting that today. The wonderful soft landing, says James. Thank you very much if that's aimed at us, James. And as James Brown once said, everybody get on up, get involved, get into it. That's what we're talking about here. Get involved at a local level. I think that's probably the greatest thing that came from our conversation last night on the Portugal Club is despite all of this political fury, heat, scandal and so on, and how foreigners can be so easily blamed for what might be going wrong in the country politically, on grassroots level, at ground level, things are going beautifully, as many of us experience every single day. And we would urge you to get further involved in your local community. Share what you've got. Bring your best, share it as you are experiencing the best that is shared with you from Portugal. So take care. Bye for now. And we will see you tomorrow morning with the wonderful Owen Lloyd-Martin. And I think he'll be sharing some poetry with us. Take care. Stay tuned for the Barefoot broadcast on that channel, of course.
Bom dia, Portugal! In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.